Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Karen's Interview Corner with CNF Global. Today I am here with Mr. Ibrahim Waweru, a senior laboratory technologist from Kenyatta University within the field of biochemistry, microbiology, and biotechnology. Now, before I begin, I just want to remind everyone that just the other day, the President declared the ongoing drought within the northeastern, eastern, and coastal regions a national disaster. So today, Mr. Waweru will be talking about food production, its shortcomings, and possible solutions towards it. Mr. Waweru, kindly tell me a little about yourself.
Now, I'm Ibrahim Waweru Kariuki, trained biotechnologist from Technical University of Kenya, and mastering that in Kenyatta University, and at the same department of biochemistry and biotechnology. Now, as I have worked with Kenyatta University, biochemistry, biotech, we have been able to identify the main challenges that affect agriculture production in Kenya, which has affected the productivity and the food sustainability in Kenya and also other regions around our country.
Yes.
Now, if you allow me, I would mention some of the challenges that have been highlighted across board that affects agricultural productivity.
Please go ahead.
Now, the main is from our common practice that agriculture in Kenya depends on rain-fed productivity. And our current trend of climate change has affected the rainfall pattern. And therefore, many of the farmers cannot predict the seasons when to do their planting. Or else sometimes they do plant and there's no enough rain to allow their crops to mature. So that becomes the main challenge whereby our food production goes down. Secondly, is our farm inputs in terms of the raw materials, the seedlings that our farmers use in their farmlands. Some of these seedlings are not certified. Therefore, there is no guaranteed expected returns from an acreage of farm where, for example, maize has been planted. So that gap in certification of seeds is affecting many of our farmers. At the same time, the cost of production in terms of buying the seeds, buying the chemicals used and the fertilizers is affecting many farmers who are not able to do proper and give enough fertilizers or manure to enable maximum yield from an acreage of farm.
Yes.
At the same time, when the chemicals are available in terms of pesticides, in terms of insecticides and also fertilizers, some of these, the data has been there showing that they contain some heavy metals, others contain some organophosphates that are poisonous from the soils. When it rains, the surface runoffs to our water supplies pollutes the other aspect of farming from fishery. That would also be affected by the chemicals washed off to the water bodies.
So the chemical runoff into the rivers, then the rivers, now we start fishing, we start using that same river water to water the plants.
To water the plants.
So it's just a cycle.
It's a cycle of polluting our soils with heavy metals. And this continuous pollution with heavy metals is what has predisposed to many of the cancer cases that we have in Kenya, starting from colon cancer, cancer of the liver, and some other cancers that were not there in the early 80s are now currently present and diagnosed even in children.
Yes.
This could be attributable to the heavy metals that are consumed from our agricultural products.
Yes.
Now, another challenge affecting our agriculture is the rural-urban migration, whereby the most energetic people that we can rely on to do the farming have moved to the urban areas, leaving only the old men and women in the villages where land is
to till the farm.
To till the farms. And these people are not energetic enough to do the proper farming.
Yes.
Now, the paradox is this young generation moving to the urban areas would need to be fed, and they are relying heavily on the rural farmers.
Yes.
whereby our agricultural production is low. The input from them is not there, but they expect to be fed from the same elderly parents or from the rural areas.
Yes.
So the challenges are more.
They can't even be
We
exhausted.
can't exhaust the challenges. Every day a new challenge poses
Comes
itself.
out, right.
For example, when it comes to maize production, we have a new challenge, the fall armyworm. So we don't know what comes next year.
Yeah, exactly.
And pose a challenge to the farmers.
Yes.
We even have some parasitic weeds. Parasitic weeds that attack the plants.
Right.
For example, in sorghum production, we have striga and others. Striga, which has been worked on by Professor Runo, which is actually a challenge in sorghum production.
So then there must be some solutions that we can think about as a country.
Of course, every challenge to scientists has a solution.
Definitely.
We have a solution to almost everything that affects humankind. Maybe the solutions can be faced from the challenge itself.
Yes.
Now, if you look at the challenge from rural-urban migration, the solution would be commercialize agriculture and ensure that every farmer is guaranteed of some output from the farming.
Yes.
And that way, young men would find agribusiness a good venture to be in, other than moving to urban areas looking for white-collar jobs.
Yes.
So if you're able to commercialize agriculture and ensure that these young people, when they do their farming, they can get something in return, then there will be the solving of rural-urban migration. Now, when you come to pesticides, this one can be faced from a biotechnological point of view.
Okay. Before we move on, biotechnological point of view, what is biotechnology?
Now, biotechnology, in simple terms, is using living organisms to solve a problem that is affecting human beings. In simple terms, for example, now solving the problem affecting human beings using living organisms, I would pose it from solving the problem with a drought surveillance or drought tolerant crops.
Yes.
Now, from your early introduction, you mentioned about the northeastern and eastern regions of our country, whereby a drought has been declared a national disaster.
Yes.
In these areas, drought-resistant cropping would be the main solution, whereby biotechnology would come in and get into the world of plants or shrubs and find out plants that survive in these regions.
In these drought-filled regions.
These drought regions, there are plants that do survive there.
For example?
That require very little water for them to grow. For example, if I mentioned cactus.
Cactus, yeah, everyone knows cactus in all the deserts of the world.
Yeah, most of the desert plants require very little quantity of water for them to grow and flourish for years. Now, from a biotechnology point of view, using this plant, there is a genetic material in this plant that enables it to survive and grow, flourish in this desert region.
Right.
So biotechnologists would come in, get this DNA or the gene that is responsible for this drought tolerance in these croppings, in these crops. Then this gene is sequenced through various techniques in the lab, and once identified, it can be introduced through transformation of, for example, maize.
Yes.
When maize is transformed, that means it has been incorporated with a drought-tolerant gene. That gene will enable that maize to survive these regions where drought has been declared a disaster.
And it will in itself become a drought-tolerant crop.
Of course, and that is why in Kenya we have water-efficient maize.
Yes.
Now, with water-efficient maize, these regions we are saying that we have drought, they can be given such type of a certified seed, and then they can grow in our regions, and our country would be self-reliant in terms of maize production. Now, the next approach would be the pests, because of course we can have good we can have certified seeds, we can have farm inputs, we can have young people going back to our land and doing the farming, but there's a challenge with the pests. For example, in Kenya now we have the forum mealworm. When we come to horticulture industry, we have the weevils and aphids. And the main way the biotechnology can come in is by use of an organism that is commonly found in the soil we call Bacillus thuringiensis, which commonly is known as a BT, whereby many of us have heard about BT maize, BT cotton. The bacteria is constantly present in our soils, and therefore it poses no harm. And if you look at bean production, if you look at the base, the intersection between the stem of bean and the soil, you have some swellings called the crown galls. So these are caused by the Bacillus thuringiensis. Now, biotechnologists have taken advantage of this particular bacillus and found that this bacteria produces a toxin which would eliminate some of these worms or some of these insect pests that affect our products. And therefore, this toxin producing organism, a genetic portion of that or a gene from that is introduced into maize. And then the maize starts producing that toxin as it grows. So any pest attacking the maize definitely dies. And that way we are able to eliminate the insect pest without the using of organophosphates or the pesticides that are polluting our soils in terms of heavy metals.
Right, the chemicals.
The chemicals. So that is an approach that we can adopt, and it has been proved to work elsewhere. Even South Africa, a country within Africa, has adopted such type of a technology. And in Kenya, we are happy that BT cotton has taken shape, and members of the cotton growing region are taking up that, which I would also recommend that we also take it in maize and have BT maize taking shape in our agricultural regions. Now, the second aspect is the farm input in terms of mechanizing our agriculture. Other than the ordinary farming with folk jembes and all the other things, and we have a lot of land, more particularly in the northeastern and the eastern regions of our country,
which are the places facing the drought.
Which are facing the drought.
Right.
If we adapt the previously mentioned technologies, then we can mechanize the agriculture.
Right.
If we mechanize that, then we can have tractors, we can have machines that are tailored towards solving the problem of a high labor cost in tilling and also farming our areas, our lands. That would go ahead even in maximizing profits or maximizing our production.
Because as it is right now, the reward is not worth the risk.
It's not worth the risk. Now, another challenge that affects, for example, we can go that way and we have maximum yield. We have many tons of maize being produced, beans, potatoes, but the challenge is that our government would come in is ensure there is a road connection.
Right.
Such that when we have potatoes grown from a given region, then these potatoes can reach the market
quickly before they get spoiled.
But again, our markets are driven by demand.
Right.
Now, when the demand is high, then the supply goes down. But we look at the market dynamics. We need to come in with a solution of food preservation.
Yes.
Because there are times we have a big supply. We have a lot of maize, we have a lot of cabbages, we have a lot of potatoes when we have a good rainfall pattern. Now, but soon after that,
so much is wasted.
Right. So if we can go to food preservation, we are solving a problem towards food sustainability.
That's true.
So it would be good if our county governments would endeavor in food preservation. That way, when you have a bumper harvest, we can preserve that food to be used when, if we do not adapt the new technologies, if we continue relying on rain-fed agriculture, then we can have alternatives by our storages that we have, which can cut across even to vegetables by drying and all other things.
Right. In fact, just the other day, we saw a documentary on a farmer who's practicing solar drying.
Yeah.
And then he fortifies, so he dries pumpkins, cassava, sweet potatoes, and then he uses now that dried powder and uses it to fortify maize flour, leading to a whole different product.
And that is where we need to go.
Right, it's true.
And that should be encouraged, and members of the public should be made to understand that there is a solution to all the problems we are facing every day. Back to dairy farming. Now, most of the Kenyans are taking up the aspect of dairy farming, but with a challenge of very few who are investing in fodder crops, like napier grass and all the others that they can give to their animals. Now, the challenge to this would be members engaging in food preservation as well. Where you have a lot of silage, you have a lot of napier grass and all that, then we need to embark on preservation techniques of these fodder crops for our animals. And that way, we can have a sustained feed supply to our animals.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you've heard it here from Mr. Ibrahim Waweru, both challenges and solutions to food production in Kenya. So one more question for you, Mr. Waweru.
Yeah.
Can you comment on perhaps the public perception on genetic modification of crops? Because, as it stands right now, I think there's a very negative perception on it. But when you really ask someone, okay, so what does GMO mean then? You're saying you don't like it, but what does it mean? And they don't really even know what it's about. They just think it gives you cancer. They have no deep knowledge about it.
No, a very good question. Now, in real sense, all of us are consumers of GMO products. Because from natural science, we don't have seedless fruits at all.
At all.
Anytime you encounter a seedless plant, that is a genetically modified plant, starting with oranges that we import from South Africa, the sweet ones that we like so much.
Juicy.
Those are juicy. That juiciness is as a result of genetic modification.
Right.
Now, when you come to tomatoes, the Monsanto, which is also as a biotech and seed production company, and others around the globe, they've come up with a tomato that can be able to has a longer shelf life. In Kenya, we had one called Kamongo that would not rot very fast. That is a genetically modified onion. Tomato, sorry for that. So genetically modified food has been consumed in Kenya. We are still consuming and we will continue consuming.
Right.
Now, the problem is the earliest whistleblower didn't have an idea what GMO is. And the earliest whistleblower was able to move the masses that GMOs are not fit for human consumption.
Right.
Now, it is time now that the earliest whistleblowers who are social scientists step behind and give the pure scientists, the molecular biologists, the biotechnologists, the geneticists time to bring on board what really GMOs are. From that common approach, from the people on the ground doing the genetic modification, then you can have a better understanding of what GMOs are. But in essence, GMOs are safe.
They are safe.
They are safe for human consumption.
If conducted safely.
If conducted safely. And of course, every laboratory has containment measures to ensure safety of every GMO product. And of course, there are several protocols, like Cartagena protocols. These are there to manage GMO products.
Right.
And if followed properly, then we can have safe genetically modified organisms in plants, in animals. For example, who would not be happy to have a sheep that would give, or a sheep that would give a high output in terms of fur?
Right. In terms of the wool.
In terms of the wool.
Right.
Would be happy about that. Is there anything wrong with that wool?
Yeah.
Nothing wrong with that.
And I think we should also accept that GMO doesn't necessarily have to be only for consumption products.
Of course.
Right.
It's actually a diverse field that we can adapt to solve some of our problems. And actually, we have been solving most of them because most of the drugs we are consuming are genetically modified products. For example, insulin for diabetic management is a genetically modified product from some organisms that have been modified from the initial design of insulin production from the pancreas of pigs. So we can have organisms producing insulin. Are genetically modified because naturally microorganisms do not produce human insulin. But they can be modified to do that and be able to take care of diabetes.
So biotechnology has been with us, is with us, and will continue to be with us in everything.
It will.
Thank you so much for your time, Mr. Waweru.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it. We really appreciate it, us CNF Global as a team, and we hope to speak to you again.
You're always welcome.
Thank you
We
so
can
much.
share more insights towards helping our country, Kenya, and Africa at large.
Thank you so much.
Welcome.